Welcome back, y'all. This is video number 2 today. The first one was breaking down the film of our orange and white game. If you missed it, you definitely want to go check that out. I give all the reasons that I'm a lot more optimistic about this team moving forward. But I do think that it's time to address the strengths and weaknesses of this team because at midnight tonight, we will have the transfer portal opening up. Will Tennessee lose any players? But I think really more importantly, what does Tennessee need to go out and target? So with all those things being said, please do make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Let's go ahead and jump into it. All right, y'all, I want to start with the post-spring outlook, and we will start with the strengths of this team. After I watched the orange and white game, I feel like the offensive scheme is definitely a strength of this team. We haven't really seen that since 2022 and Alex Golesh. Once he left, the offensive scheme 2023, 2024, it was very straight up and down. It was vertical routes, comeback routes, or, it was digs. That was pretty much it. It wasn't as much, switch routes, wasn't as much crossing patterns or rub routes. We saw it some, but definitely not as much as we did with Coach Golesh. But what I saw in Tennessee's orange and white game, understanding that they didn't want to show too much on film, that offense that we saw inside the orange and white game is light years better than what we saw pretty much for all of 2023 and 2024. To me, it looked very similar to like how Ole Miss runs this same scheme, where you're going to get, again, those crossing routes, you're going to get those slants, you're going to get some tighter splits. It's not going to be as up and down. You're also going to get some outside zones and sweep plays and just a lot of gadgetry stuff, and everything has something like a wrinkle that comes off of it. I think that having an offensive scheme that works this way is going to be very, very beneficial for the quarterbacks that we have inside of that room, because before you had to have a very, very strong arm. You pretty much had to be a juggernaut playing a quarterback for this offense to pretty much move at all. And that's why I was so concerned heading into 2025. But what I just saw, again, understanding that that's the base of what we're going to be working with now, I feel great. I think that we could operate it with either one of the quarterbacks that we have right now inside of that room. The next thing is going to be the offensive line depth. The offensive line depth is tremendous. From left tackle to right tackle, everything in between. We're about 2 to 3 deep of guys that can really, really play. And I'm talking about at a high level. This is the best looking offensive line that I've seen at Tennessee in a long time. We have to go back to Coach Farmer, and I sincerely mean that. I think that we've got the talent, as long as we're going to hold on to everybody, right? But I think that we have the talent, and we've got guys that are playing with a lot better fundamentals. Really, even their blocking scheme looks different. I think that that's part of the scheme. So the scheme, to me, is definitely the biggest thing, but everything really starts up front. You've got to be able to block things up front, and if you can do that, then all the other plays, pretty much anything that a coach wants to do, they should be able to execute that, from the skill player's perspective. Now, third thing for me is going to be the running back and tight end depth is definitely a strength of this team. We have 5 running backs that I absolutely love. No, we didn't get to see Morris go, but we knew from his high school film that he's a guy that can make a whole lot of things happen, and all he needed to do was gain that weight. So now that he's done that, I feel very, very, comfortable and confident about that room. The other running backs that did go, man, they looked great. They're using their eyes very well. They're running through tackles. They're holding on, taking care of the football. Those are the things that you love to see with a running back room, even though there is some youth. There's some new players. There's really only 2 vets inside of that room. But I think that we will be fine. The biggest question mark for me is, will Coach Sims rotate 3 like we saw previously? We didn't see it last year where Dylan Sampson got 258 carries, which is crazy. That's too much of a load for any running back to take, which is why, unfortunately, he wasn't really able to go in our playoff game. We can't make the same mistakes twice. So I think moving forward, we will see more running backs get their opportunities. And then, again, talking about those tight ends, I love that room. Obviously, Miles Kittelman, he's going to miss, maybe a game, 2 or 3. Not quite sure how long he's going to be out. But I feel fine about it because, number one, we have Ethan Davis, who is a dog. He's looked a lot better. I think he was more physical in the orange and white game. But then we have guys like Jack Van Dorselaer, who I think looked great. Obviously, he had 3 touchdowns, but he also was very physical. I think Nicole Harrison looks good. And then we also have Brain, who's a younger guy. He needs to get a little bit more physical, but he's got the whole offseason, the whole summer to get bigger and stronger and things like that. And once he picks that up, we're going to be perfectly fine there. Last strength for me is going to be Tennessee's defense. I think that from top to bottom, it might take a little bit of a step back. Okay, we will get to the transfer portal stuff, and we'll kind of talk more on, what that could look like. But if it does take a step back, it's not going to be a huge step back. And Tennessee's defense was, I would say, I don't even care what the stats say. I would say that Tennessee's defense was top 5 in the nation last season. So I would expect that we're not going to fall off too far from that. And that's going to be something that I feel like Tennessee might need to lean on in 2025. Now let's talk about Tennessee's weaknesses. Obviously, we've got, a young quarterback room. We've got young wide receivers. We've got young cornerbacks, and we've got some young stars, right? So we've got a lot of youth in several different places. But what I will say, number one, let's talk about cornerbacks and star. I love those guys. Okay, so at cornerback, I think that number 3 might be Tyler Redmond, but if you're talking about who's going to back up Boo Carter playing at star, I think it's going to be Caleb Beasley. This is his second season inside of Tennessee's system, but he looks just totally different. He looks really, really good. I'm excited about him there. And then we've got some other young guys that I trust just as depth pieces there. Now, talking about Tennessee's young wide receivers, obviously they had a great showing, especially Ra Jackson in the orange and white game. We heard a whole lot about Travis Smith. We already know that, Mike Matthews and Braylon Staley, those guys are dogs. I think that Jefferson has looked really, really good so far, at least in that orange and white game. Now, we didn't get to see him too much, over the course of spring and practice and things like that. I know that he was limited. He's probably still a little bit limited, but understanding that and then seeing the way that he was able to go out there and operate within this new scheme, I think that we will be fine there, but I will just go ahead and kind of, bury the lead on this. I feel like we definitely need to go add a wide receiver. So going all the way up to the top with our young quarterbacks, obviously we've got two guys that we really, really like there, but there is something to be said about, not having started inside of this league. We got to go down to the swamp this season. How are they going to handle that? That's a very, very hostile crowd. And really the same thing could be echoed for all the young players or all the new players that haven't played inside of the SEC. But let's come all the way down to the bottom. I think that defensive tackle depth is something that we've got some really good looking players there too that are, young. But there are some older players that we expected to be ready for us this season that are banged up. They have kind of been banged up. So we can't really call that, right? Like we don't know how they're going to look. So that's another spot that I would definitely point to and say that Tennessee probably needs to target inside of the transfer portal. All right, now let's talk about Tennessee's portal needs. The number one thing for me is definitely going to be quarterback. That should be number one on everybody's list because we only have 2 scholarship guys. You really need 3. If anything happens, you are in a terrible situation. You don't want to be out there with wide receivers having to play at quarterback or anything like that, right? So you've got to make sure that you've got enough bodies inside of that room. And right here, what I have is we either need a veteran baller or a veteran backup. I don't know how the staff sees this, but I can tell you personally, after the way that the offensive system and scheme looked in the orange and white game, I think that either one of the guys that we have inside of that room could operate this offense at a high enough level to get us where we want to get to, just because it's a lot more user friendly. So with that being said, we did give you a pretty long list. I think what we had 6 or 7 guys or something like that on the total list of wide receivers that we would like for Tennessee to maybe tamper with and try to get out of the transfer portal. First, we got to get them to enter into the portal. Avery Johnson would be number one for me. I think that Avery Johnson could have operated Tennessee's system last season. He could definitely do it this year. Not quite sure where he's at because he is from Kansas. People have come out and said that he's probably not going to leave Kansas State. I mean, I think that people will do a lot of crazy things if you can put enough money on the table. Either way, there is another name that I want to kind of throw out there to everybody, and his name is Rocco Beck. He played at Iowa State last season. I hope that I said his name right, but he's about 6'1", 210 pounds. He's got the arm that he definitely also could have ran Tennessee's system last year. I think that that was my biggest holdup is, hey, man, these guys have to have really strong arms to even, have a chance at operating our offensive scheme from last season. He definitely has that. But with his new scheme, I think that his touch, his timing, and all that type of stuff, his savviness, him being an older guy, I think that that would be very, very beneficial for us if we could add him. He's also a player that can use his legs. To me, he's not going to be as mobile as GMAC or as Merck. But, in a really tough situation, if he has to use his legs, he can definitely do it. So that's just another name that I wanted to kind of throw out there. But we'll see. Can Tennessee maybe actually add a Gaston Moore, which I kind of laughed at before? But now that I see how this system looks, it might actually make sense, right? Like you bring in a guy like Gaston who already knows this system. We added a couple of new wrinkles to it. Sounds like he doesn't already have a landing spot. He could come in, maybe get a little bit of a raise and just pretty much be there to just make sure that the quarterback's minds are right and all that. We actually saw Merck with Gaston on that players lounge last season. So I think that that could be a pretty good option as well. But you either need to find a guy that can go out and be a surefire starter, like a one and done guy, or you need someone that's going to be perfectly fine being a backup. I think it's going to be difficult to find either one of those. So number 2 for me is definitely wide receiver. Same thing that we said about quarterbacks. We either need to have a veteran baller or a veteran backup. I don't know that you really want to go target a younger player, but you could do it inside of this room as opposed to the quarterback room, because in that quarterback room, if you go out and get a younger guy, that could push out Merck, it could push out GMAC, it could also push out Faison. We don't want to mess up the quarterback room for the future. So if this season, like, let's just say, I'm not saying that this is the case, but if the staff feels like this season might be kind of a wash, you would much rather say, hey, we'll watch this season, but look forward to the future with our quarterback room that's the way that you want to play that. Now, wide receiver is different because you could bring in a guy like we'll say that's a second year player, right? Coming to this system, they can learn, they can fight for a starting spot. And if somebody doesn't like it, then if they end up losing their spot, if they get beat out, yeah, you lost a guy, but at the same, and not saying that we want to lose players, but at the same time, you really gained someone that was better. I just think that that room doesn't have enough bodies, so we might be in one of those situations. But obviously, it would be ideal to find someone that again is a one and done player that doesn't mind fighting for some playing time, right? That understands that, hey, the playing time is going to have to get split up because, again, we don't want to bring in a guy from the transfer portal and then lose a guy and be right back to square one. The third thing for me, okay, and I feel like it is in this order. You could maybe switch number 3 and number 2, but for me, I would say that we need to go out and get 2 defensive tackles. I think that we need a 3 technique and a bigger guy that's like a 0 technique or like a 1 technique that could also play some 2. So, that would be like your big E's. That would be like your big O's. I think that Tennessee needs to go target some dogs at that spot. Now, do they have to be guys that come in and are just like world beaters? I mean, I think that would be great if we could find that, but it doesn't really matter. Like, as long as they're good enough that they can fight to be a starter, understanding that Coach Gardner is going to rotate, I think that that would be great because while I love the youth inside of that room, I'm just not sure will they be ready by kickoff on a consistent basis. Coach G typically likes to rotate, I'd say like 4, 5, 6 guys at that spot. So you need to find them. I love Nathan Robinson. I also love Wallace, but they're both banged up. Nathan Robinson, it feels like he's always kind of banged up. So you got to make sure that you've got a very stout middle of your defense on the line of scrimmage because, like I said, the defense could be a strength. Okay, I think that the defense is a strength of this team, but we've got to be able to stop the run. That's going to be huge. If Tennessee can't clog up those gaps, if we can't eat up those blocks and let a really good, linebacking core roam free, it's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough for us to be as good as at least I want for us to be. And y'all already know, for me, I'm about winning championships. And the last thing that I would say Tennessee needs to try to target would be the best thing that's left. Okay, I'm looking for some game changers. I don't really think that it matters where that's at. If we have enough money left over, if the rumors are true that the donors and all that, they're looking to spend more money inside of this spring window. If that's true, then why not just go out and get you a really, really good player that can change the game just to add to everything else that we talked about. I don't think that that would hurt too much of anything, right? Like, just for me, I think that if we could go out, show that we can win at a really, really high level, everything else is going to take care of itself, whether we have to go add some more players from high school or from the portal. If you're bringing in good guys and if they perform at that high level, other people will want to follow suit. So that's where I'm at with it. Those are my thoughts. I think that we can definitely get this thing done. But, y'all let me know y'all's thoughts down in the comment section. And as always, please do make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks. Peace.